12. Vampires and Other Cultural Misunderstandings. By the time Valco and Maya made their way down the stairs, the generator was rumbling away in the background, and the lights were back on. There were candlesticks set out hastily on all the surfaces as well, just to be safe. Some of the mirrors above some of the chimneys had been warped by the strangeness into abstract whorls of glass, and at certain places in the paneling, bunches of wires had broken through the surface of the wall as they blossomed into wild designs. But in the grand drawing-room of the embassy, the two Dr. Nikolovs, Valco's mother and father, were calmly waiting to greet their earliest guests. Had they even noticed the strangeness rolling through? The Nikolovs were diplomats, and thus by training unflappable, no matter what was going on at the time with the laws of physics. Maya tightened her grip on her bouquet, which, after the excitement on the roof and a certain amount of molecular rearrangement, was somewhat the worse for wear, and surreptitiously wiped her nervous right hand on her skirt. The lights were very bright. There were old paintings in frames on the walls, and the furniture was dark and elaborate, and there were flowers everywhere, as well as people standing by with trays in their hands, waiting for the real guests to arrive. "Here we go, Maya," said Valco with an encouraging smile. "Time to meet my absolutely terrifying parents. Mama, this is Maya." Maya handed over the bouquet, shook Dr. Nikolova's hand firmly, and said, "Zdravejte," with conviction, which was the proper Bulgarian way of saying hello, and looked straight into Valco's mother's brilliant dark eyes. "Chessboard eyes," Valco had told her on the roof. "You'll see what I mean when you meet her. She was a chess champion when she was a girl, you know. Milena Todorova, queen of the checkered board. Her eyes are always at least 7 moves ahead." "Lovely flowers, thank you," said Valco's mother. "I am glad to meet you at long last. Georgi, this is Valco's young friend from school, Maya Davidson, the scientist's child." Valco's father shook her hand, too, and said something kind. His hair was gray at the temples, and he was in a suit that made him look like a movie star. Maya ran through all the polite phrases she could think of and tried very hard to keep smiling, but those 60 seconds before Valco rescued her by dragging her off to the drinks table made for a long, long minute indeed. The other guests had begun to arrive. "Fine so far," said Valco. He seemed relieved, Maya thought, just to be off the embassy roof and away from the impossible talking statues. But a glittering dinner party with grown-ups you don't even know had to be 1,000, a million times worse than Gargoyles. No, it wasn't fair. Maya was practically sweating bullets, and here was Valco sailing through the evening as if it were the most fun he'd had in ages. That was what being a diplomat's kid meant, Maya guessed. He hadn't even seemed all that nervous back when he first met Maya's parents, had he? Maya tried to remember. No, it seemed to her that even then Valco had remained unreasonably cheerful and calm. "So this is the Bulgarian Cultural Foundation's annual award dinner," said Valco, "as you know. If you read the invitation all the way through. That means a lot of artists and doddering profs around the table tonight. Get ready." At least they were kind enough to seat her next to Valco at the huge dining table in the next room. She could keep an eye on which fork he was using, and she figured that might just save her etiquette-challenged neck. On the other side was an older man, older than her father. He introduced himself very politely as a historian. "What kind of history?" asked Maya, equally politely. "At the moment, mademoiselle," said the old man, "I am completing a very important project on the history of yogurt." "Yogurt?" said Maya. That surprised her all right, but she kept her expression as much under wraps as possible. "Yogurt, but yes, absolutely," said the old man. "The crowning glory of Bulgarian, as it were, culture. That's a pun, my dear." Maya blinked, not knowing what to say. "Why, even the vaunted Greeks use our cultures. Read the labels on their cartons if you don't believe me, child. Bulgarian cultures are everywhere. L. Bulgaricus, humble conqueror of the Western world. You, mademoiselle, I sense, are neither French nor Bulgarian." "American," said Maya. "Ah," said the historian of yogurt, making a very horrified face. "Where, I have heard, they serve yogurt frozen. And with what do you call them? Toppings?" Maya risked a quick glance at Valco on her other side. He was grinning from ear to ear. And now you have met our favorite crusty historian. But you are harmless, aren't you, Professor Stoyanov? The old man chuckled into his napkin. Oh, yes, young Valco. Sad to say. Harmless, harmless. They need not hide me down here at the children's end of the table. I have given up breaking plates. And that was when the dining-room doors flew open. All heads at the table looked up and around. A woman had paused with one foot through the doorway, almost, you might say, striking a pose under the elegant arch. She was wearing a tailored black skirt and a rather showy jacket, floral brocade with threads of gold. But everything was slightly askew. Her blouse was untucked on one side. You could see that her hair had started off combed sleekly back into a ponytail, but had then rebelled. And down one side of that disobedient hair was a streak of surprising, blinding white. "Madame Blakely!" exclaimed Valco's unflappable mother. "How pleased we all are that you have arrived." "I'm afraid I'm late," said Madame Blakely, in plainly American English, her face twitching into a foolish smile. "I am late, aren't I? I arrived just outside, and then the lights went off, and then—" She moved her hands about hopelessly, describing something she was obviously in no condition to describe. "The carnival downstairs," she said. "There's a carnival, yes? And then suddenly, you know, I was singing." She laughed. Of all people, me, singing. Everyone else at the table sat as if stunned. "Well, the adventure ends happily, madame," said Valco's mother with professional courtesy. "You have found your way to our table, and before the soup. Please do take a seat." Indeed, as the men at the table remembered their advanced manners and rose in greeting, members of the embassy staff were already guiding Madame Blakely to the empty chair across the table from Maya and Valco. Pernithia Jane Blakely is this year's winner of the Bulgarian Cultural Foundation's Works in Progress grant, said Valco's father to the table at large, for artists whose works engage deeply and profoundly with Bulgarian culture. We are very happy Madame Blakely could attend our dinner this evening. It is an honor for us, I'm sure. The soup had the tastiest little meatballs in it. Maya realized by the second spoonful that part of the funny feeling in her stomach had been plain old-fashioned hunger. She was glad to have something to do with herself, too. She knew how to eat soup. "Bulgarian culture," said the historian of yogurt, setting his spoon down in his empty bowl. "So your writing engages with Bulgarian culture, Madame Blakely? May I ask, what aspect of Bulgarian culture has attracted your interest?" "Oh, yes," said Pernithia Jane Blakely. "Vampires." Was it Maya's imagination, or did several people at that table stiffen slightly? Pernithia Jane Blakely, ignoring her soup, had jumped into a description of the book she was planning to write, Love with Long Teeth, in which, apparently, a beautiful girl was going to run her European rental car off the road and be rescued by a handsome and mysterious man with mechanical skills and a reluctance to share his name. Then they were going to go to his family mansion in the hostile, barren Bulgarian hills, and one night the man would bare his sexy chest and reveal a set of surprisingly sharp eye teeth, and she— "Excuse me," said the historian, "but no, no." "Professor Stoyanov," said Valco's mother, her voice chilly. But he waved her reproof away, while a crew of waiters replaced the soup bowls with plates containing little gourmet mounds of chopped salad, garnished with walnuts, and— what was that? Maya's heart contracted. For a moment she thought the strangeness had affected the embassy's kitchen. Then she realized that what she was seeing was a radish carved, by hand, not by magic, to look exactly like a rose. She relaxed again, but only for a second. Professor Stoyanov, historian of yogurt, was in the middle of a long lecture on the figure of the vampire in Bulgaria, and whenever he got to a particularly important point, he whacked his fork against his plate for emphasis. "Not sexy," whack. "Not sexy at all. I'm sorry, but I am fatigued by this nonsense," whack. "Do you even know what creates them, vampiri? A bad death. Someone dies and the funeral is not done properly. An evil man who dies badly. That can make the poor, unhappy vampire. And then it is sexy. Is it handsome? No. Whack! It is a hungry shadow. Some say a bag of blood. The opposite of sexy. Whack! For 40 days the shadow wanders. If it can feast enough, madame, on the living, it can, on the 40th day, return to life itself. That's what it hungers to do. Eat someone's heart and live. That is all. No bare chests and romance. No, not a Bulgarian vampire. A couple of whacks for emphasis, and then the servers swooped in and took all their salad plates away. Professor Stoyanov, disarmed, glowered across the table at the American writer, who seemed to be taking the diatribe quite well. "I am just simply asking you, madame," said the historian of yogurt, "where you are getting your false information about Bulgarian vampires." "It's not false information," said the writer in surprise. "It's fiction. I mean, I made it all up, of course. And anyway, vampires have to be sexy. Everyone knows that. Otherwise, what's even the point?" The historian huffed with impatience, and in any case, Maya was hardly listening any more. The salad had been replaced by the gourmet version of stuffed peppers, tiny, beautiful peppers arranged on a plate and drizzled with bright swirls of some kind of sauce. But Maya looked at her plate and saw hungry shadows wandering the streets for 40 days. 40 days! That was Valco's quiet voice on her left side. So he had heard it too. Of course he had. "Valco," she said. He squeezed her hand quickly under the table. They couldn't talk here. She knew that. This wasn't the place. "Well, young lady, how do you like the pulneni chushki?" said the historian on Maya's other side. "They've fancied it up, of course, for the French taste. And do American taste buds agree?" "It's very good, thank you," said Maya, although, to tell the truth, worry had taken most of the flavor away. "That's a yogurt sauce there on the side," he said. "That's traditional. Your hand is shaking, young lady. Have you had too much wine?" Maya shook her head. She didn't drink wine. But when she raised her eyes a little, she was disconcerted to find Pernithia Blakely, the writer, staring squarely at her. "You're an American girl," said the writer. "Where are you from? What's your name?" Maya shook her head and then realized that made no sense, and nodded instead. I'm from California," she said. "I am a friend of Valco's. That's why I'm here." "What's your name?" said the writer. "I could send you a book sometime. Are you a big reader?" Maya nodded. The writer was still waiting. "I'm Maya Davidson," said Maya, almost under her breath. The writer passed a hand over her eyes, and Maya saw something change in her face. "Maya?" she said. "Maya?" Oh, no. That telltale stripe of white in her hair. She had been caught up in a carnival outside. She had found herself singing. "Oh, Valco, help," Maya whispered again. I know, murmured Valco, and being the sort of person who takes direct action right away when direct action is needed, he knocked his water glass over immediately. Water rushed across the table and onto Maya's lap. "I'm so sorry," he said aloud, leaping to his feet and making a big show of dabbing at the table with napkins. "I've made such an awful mess. You'll have to get all cleaned up." His parents were half displeased, his mother, and half amused, his father. "Oh, Valco," said his mother, "clumsy child, help the poor girl." "Excuse me," said Valco to everybody around that table, and he bowed his head for a second, took Maya by the elbow, she grabbed her backpack from under her chair, and guided her safely out. She wasn't even that awfully drenched when they surveyed the damage in the next room. "You heard what that woman said," said Maya. "I mean, how she said it. And she's got that streak in her hair. She said she was singing." "It's not good," said Valco, shaking his head. "Not to mention her book sounds horrible." "Well, it could be okay," said Maya, who was willing to read anything. "Just because she's been turned into a ravenous Samo-what's-it doesn't mean she's a bad writer, necessarily." Valco made a face. "We'll just have to hide out here until the dinner's over," he said with regret. "Too bad. I happen to know that dessert's going to be those warm chocolate cakes with the melty middles." They didn't go back in until the guests were saying their farewells and departing, and even then they were careful to hang back in the corners, while the writer, puzzled, kept looking around as if she had lost something and couldn't quite remember what that something was. Every time she caught sight of Maya, her eyes would light up again, and she would lunge forward, but Maya and Valko were quicker on their feet, and finally even Pernithia Jane Blakely was ushered out the door by the Dr. Nicholovs and their efficient staff. "That leaves only the esteemed junior guests," said Valko's father, nodding to Maya and Valko. "Poor girl," said Valko's mother. "Sometimes our son lives up to his name, I'm afraid. Wild wolfling, our Valko. Did you suffer very much?" She had put a fond arm around Valko's shoulders while she said that, though. Maya found herself filled suddenly with determination. She shivered a little as she opened her mouth. "It was so kind of you to invite me," she said, remembering to be very, very polite. "It was really kind. Thank you. I just wish—" It was as if she had entered a fairy tale. You battle your way through the castle where the king and queen of the fairies live, and you always end up, if you live, with the chance for a wish, don't you? "I just wish so much Valko could stay in Paris," she said. There was a silence. Valko's mother's eyes had snapped back into sharp focus. You could almost see the chess pieces being moved about in her mind as she raised her eyebrows at Maya. "He has made a friend here, I see," said Dr. Nikolova finally, and with the faintest ghost of a smile. "That, of course, is a good thing. Yes, even I know that. You'll see Maya safely home now, Valko, without spilling anything more on her?" And so, after tucking themselves into sweaters and jackets, Maya and Valko were dismissed into the cold, strange November night.